How's it going, everybody? It's Connor here. Today we're going to be talking about a build that I'm using for Verso, Maelle, and Sciel that has been carrying me through the end game of, well, Expedition 33. Now, before I run through the build, I do want to show you how this works and how gameplay should look by the time you get to a high level. Now, let's go ahead and explain how the combat's going to work. Now, we're always going to begin with Sciel, who is going to start off with a skill all set to buff all of our characters just like this, so that they all have all the buffs. We'll then use her second skill, Intervention, to go ahead and make Verso go second. Even though Maelle is technically the second one, it's going to take Verso and give him a free turn ahead of time, which allows us to use his free aim and try get his perfection to S rank. So you're going to aim at weak points on enemies and try and mark them and burn them and get as many hits as you can on these characters so that you can increase your rank as well as some extra damage. In some cases with weaker enemies, you might just end up killing them in this stage. Now you'll see I managed to get him to A rank over here, and we ran out of AP, and we can now go for a basic attack and just attack the enemy. This is going to get us to S rank over here and also give us a full 9 AP after the base attack. At which point you can now go ahead to your skills and either use Phantom Stars if you're using multiple enemies and you want to hit everything. Usually it's going to like destroy everything and like break so many shields. In this case, it actually works better to use Steel Strike, which is against one enemy. And because we were given a free turn by Sciel, you'll see that we can do the setup now for Steel Strike. And after Maelle's turn, we're going to go again, which is great. So we're going to use Steel Strike. We're going to set it up and we'll use it on the enemy. This will then end our turn and wait until we come back. Now, at this point on Sciel, we're going to go ahead and make sure we have used all of our AP so that we have 1 AP left to use a Last Chance. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can apply some marks on the enemies or some more additional burns. You're then going to use a Last Chance, which is going to bring you down to 1 HP. And because of Clair's life Picto, we're going to heal all the way up to maximum, which means Last Chance isn't actually as bad as it looks at first. Now at this point, ideally, one of the enemies should have a mark on them because we're going to use Gustav's Homage on one of them. Now with Maelle, you have 2 attacks that you want to work into. If your target is marked and you don't have 3 gradient charges, you're going to use Gustav's Homage, which is going to do increased lightning damage to marked targets, and it's also not going to remove the mark. But if you have 3 gradient charges, you should always go into your gradient attack and use Gamage, right? So that is the second attack that you'll probably end up using her for during your battles. So the second time she comes around, you should be ready for this attack, which usually does a crap ton of damage and will probably one-shot whoever you're hitting it with. In the case of Verso, you'll see when he uses his Steel Strike attack, he's going to whip it out here with a ton of hits, usually dealing around 6 million HP or more, which is a really cool attack to use. You also always have the option to use Phantom Stars, which is going to hit all enemies in front of you, dealing break damage, which is also a really good attack move, but it's not so great for single targets. It's really designed for like 3 or more enemies. Now that you've seen how that all works, let me show you what Pictos, weapons, and builds I'm using for these characters. Let's go ahead and begin with Verso. Verso over here is using the Dualiso weapon. This is fully upgraded to level 33. This uses the lightning element and it has the abilities to make you play again after a base attack, increases your base attack damage, and also base attack gives you 4 perfection, which is very important to get us to S rank by our second turn with him. The attributes you'll be using on Verso are Vitality, Might, and Defense. You're going to want to try put 99 in all of those. I recommend starting with Might. In terms of the skills we're using, we have Phantom Stars. This is great for when you have multiple enemies to deal with. It's also great for destroying their stances so that you can stun them because it can apply break. If you're dealing with single targets, Steel Strike is going to be your main attack that's going to deal crazy damage. The rest of the spells are really up to you in your choice. I often find myself just using either these first 2 or sometimes Perfect Break to, break a shield specifically on one character. Now here's the complete list of the Luminas that I'm using right now on this build. Now you don't actually need all of them. Some of them are just to increase my damage or survivability, but I'm going to be pointing out the ones that you absolutely need to make this build essential for how we're playing it. And that is going to make use of the combo attack 1, 2, and 3. Each of these are going to add an extra attack to your base attack, so that your base attack is going to have a total of 4 hits. And because each of those hits is going to generate an AP point, you're going to get 4 AP for just using your base attack. Using the energizing attack Pictos, you just need 1 in this point here to add an additional AP on base attack, which goes from 4 to 8 because you're getting 2 per hit. Which essentially means that when you do your base attack, you're going to get 8 AP and then the new turn swaps over and you're going to get 1 for the new turn, which means you're always going to have 9 AP for your next turn after using base attack. Augmented attack is a great one to add on here to increase your base attack damage by 50%. So you do a ton of damage with your base attack as well. Couple this with Breaker, where you deal 25% increased break damage. You can help break those shields on enemies a whole lot quicker. I'm talking about the yellow stagger bar in this case. You'll also need to unlock your base attack to unlock the breaking effect of it so that you use this Picto. You're also going to want to add charging attack so that you get 15% of a gradient charge on base attack so that you can build up your gradient charges a whole lot faster. And in this build, it's for Maelle to use Gamage, which is going to be like a one-shot spell in this case. Using the energizing shots Picto allows you to have a 20% chance to gain 1 AP on free aim shots. This is great to allow you to guarantee that you get S rank perfection after you use your first turn to just use free aim shots. The exposing attack Picto is great for this build because base attack is going to apply defenseless, which means you're going to do more damage as you follow up with more attacks. Of course, you're going to have painted power, so your damage can exceed 9,999. Marking shots is great for this so that you can mark your enemies and then use rewarding marks so that you can gain 2 AP on dealing damage to them while you're in your free aim mode. Sometimes it lets me hit an enemy with free aim almost like 20 times. It's crazy. We then have staggering attack, which increases our break damage on our base attack by an additional 50%. Then the versatile Picto is going to give us a boost to our base attack after using a free aim hit, which we will always be using. The rest of the Pictos I have here are to increase defense or offense. In my case, this is fully offense, as by you can tell which ones we have. Now, Verso on his own in this case is really good, but you can make him better by having a support like Sciel. Now, in terms of Sciel, we're pretty much only using her for 2 skills. The skill called All Set, where she applies Shell, Powerful, and Rush to all allies. And we're going to have her play first in our battles so that she can put this down to buff all of our characters. We then have Intervention, which allows us to target an additional character in our party to let them play a second time and gain 4 AP. So this sets you up to get a free turn as well as additional AP on one of your other characters, Maelle or Verso, so that they can go again and do some more damage or set up. In my case, I'm using this weapon over here, the Chashion or Chation, but it's not really important to the support role that she's currently playing on my team. And that's why we don't really make use of these other 4 skills, so feel free to play it how you want. Here are the Lumina points that I'm using for Sciel. Now, of course, you don't need all of these. There's only some specific ones that I recommend you start with. Now, the main one I'm using here is Beneficial Contamination, which is going to give us plus 2 AP on applying a status effect. As such, we're going to have Auto Regen to apply regen to ourselves. And with our skill all set, we're going to be applying the other 3 buffs, which is going to kind of fill us up on AP quite easily. We also have Energizing Start to give you an additional AP point to start the battle. I have 3 of them, giving me 3 AP to begin the battle. We also have Energy Master here, which is going to increase our AP gain by 1 for all AP gains, which means that Sciel is always going to be pretty much maxed out. Now, we're not going to be using her for attacks, but we do need her to go first, so she's going to have the First Strike Picto, which allows her to go first in the battle. We also have the Faster Than Strong Pictos, which allows us to play twice in a row, which is basically like the Cheater Pictos that makes you play twice in a row, but it's a lot cheaper to use. But it does come with the caveat that you do 50% less damage, which is fine because we're using her entirely for, support. But if you want to use her for damage, you're going to rather use the Cheater Picto. And honestly, that's all I really use her for. The rest of the Pictos are just for some strange increases. You don't really have to copy the rest. Just make sure she has AP. And then lastly, we have Maelle, who is our strong damage dealer with a huge focus on single target damage. She's using the Yevarim weapon, which is over here. The reason I'm using this weapon is because it has a very defensive power to it. By applying Shell to ourselves, we also apply shields, which gain AP, and then when we switch to Virtuoso stance, we double all of our shields on ourselves and all allies. So it's a really cool defensive weapon that sets up the whole team. In terms of our skills, we're using Last Chance, which reduces our health to 1, but refills all of our AP and switches us to Virtuoso Stance, which is fine. Trust me, we have a full heal for this too. Now, our main attack that we're going to use here, besides our gradient attacks, is going to be Gustav's Homage, which is a high single target damage. And if the target is marked, you're going to do increased damage to them, and it's also not going to remove the mark, which means that all 8 of those hits is going to do crazy damage to marked targets. But you can also feel free to play around with some of the other skills if you need. The stats we're using here are 99 Might, 99 Agility, and 99 Defense if you can get it. Now here are the Pictos that we're using on Maelle. As you can see here, this is also with about 300 Lumina points, so don't expect to be getting all of these. The ones that are important, I'm going to show you. The rest you can choose based on what you have and how you want to increase her defense or her offense. Now, because of the weapon and the shields that we can get on her, we're going to have auto shells, because when we shell, we gain shields. And we're also going to have Solidifying, which adds 2 shields when the character's health falls below 50%, which is going to happen when we use our Last Chance. Now, it's very important you add the Cheater Pictos, because she's going to be using Last Chance and going down to 1 HP. With the Cheater Pictos, you can play immediately after that. And if you have Clair's Life Pictos as well, this will immediately give you 100% HP if you take no damage. And because you're not going to take any damage between, the 2 turns here with Cheater, it means you're going to go down to 1 HP and fully heal back up to maximum. So you don't have to worry about dying at 1 HP. Instead of Cheater, you can also use the Shortcut Pictos, which allows you to immediately play when falling below 30% health, which means it's going to give you a free turn right after you use Last Chance. Now, because you're going to want her to do as much damage as you can with her main attacks, we have First Offensive, her first hit dealt, and Taken deals 50% more damage. We're using First Strike in this case as well, so that we can get her to go faster, because some of the Pictos I have don't have enough speed. But I'll show you a little trick on how this works. We also have Full Strength, which means we do 25% increased damage on full health, because we're going to be full health when we do our attack because of Clair's life. We have Glass Cannon, 25% more damage. Now, because we also want her to use her Gradient Gommage attack, we also want the Gradient Fighter Pictos here to increase the damage of that by 25%. You're going to want Greater Powerful to increase the powerful effect that you're going to get. Using Immaculate is going to give you 30% increased damage until a hit is received. You're obviously going to have Painted Power to do more than 9,999 damage. You can also take a chance of adding Roulette so that each hit has a 50% chance to either deal double or half damage. We have Teamwork to increase our damage, and the rest are pretty much just to increase your damage and playability. Now, the order we want to follow for Sciel to play first, we actually have to make sure she's the only one in the party. So remove the other characters from the party, make sure Sciel's the first one, then select Maelle. So we have her second, and then we have Verso as third, but we're actually going to have him play second through a little bit of a trick. And because you added them to the party in this case, you'll see that when we go into combat, or if you fight with enemies by starting the battle like this, it will always start in the order that you have in your loadout of who was added first to the party. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.